Right, so I'll just quickly go again for others. So I get my frame, my desktop frame. See, I'm doing the desktop layout, right? I want to design, but then I want to create a layout grid so I can better position my items or my elements. So on the right hand side, I'll see something like layout. I'll see a square of circles, and I'll see plus. I click on the plus and I get this. But this is not what I want, right? So I will come in here, change grid to column, and then we said that for web, the advisable count is 12, so we go 12. For margin, 96 pixels upward, right? Now, why we are giving this large margin is to accommodate for different screen sizes. We tested it earlier, if I'm on a 27 inches monitor and you used a 40 pixels margin, it will be up in my face. It will be too large into my face, right? So to streamline it, we give a larger margin by the side. I personally work with 100, 120, but 96 pixels upward is acceptable. 80 pixels can fly also. Now this is where I do my thing inside this place. All this other side are margins, except maybe I have an overflowing element, maybe a long image that I want it to span the full width, then it enters there. Apart from that, nothing stays by the margin. Everything just stays inside where we now want to start designing. For your gutter is the distance between two columns, right? This white space. For your gutter, 20 works, working with our spacing scale, 20 works, 24 works. It all depends on you, how far apart you want to space your elements. So if you want to space them a little bit tighter, 20, a little bit wider, 24. So I usually go with 24 just to keep it distance apart. In case for any effect I have, any hover effect I have on any, I might have a rectangle here, right? And if I hover on it, I want it to give me maybe a drop shadow. Maybe give me a subtle drop shadow. So I just now it will take some space because the shadow will span into the other one. So I give 24 pixels so there's enough space. But then it's my preference, right? So now this is your grid layout for a desktop. I saw some folks. Now I don't know how long that took you, but I saw someone drawing a rectangle and dividing it into 12 and submitted it as you've done your layout. I saw another one, they did this too, and instead of doing it like this, they made it this way, and in the end, you now show me one that has both of them inside each other. You have created a modular scale, you created a modular grid. I mean, it works, right? Because when I went into it, I saw that the spacing scale was appropriate. But then the time it took to do all those, you must have done other things and then utilize justice and move on. Moreover, those things, they are elements on your screen. I mean, they are rectangles on your screen. So when you then want to design, what do you do to them? Do you take them out, then work, and then bring them back in? So why not just use what they have here when you want to design, turn it on, if not, turn it off. That. Talking about mobile. So talked about mobile 13 mini or Pro X, right? So let's work with our Pro X. Same thing happens, layout grid, come here, change it to column. Now for count, we go with 4 pixels for count, right? 4 pixels. Our margin, 16 pixels. Now 16 pixels is what Apple and Android use. So since you should be designing for those two um, operating systems, you should adopt 60 pixels also. For your gutter, 20 works. 20 is fine for your gutter. If you want it to be a little bit tighter, 16 works, meaning the distance between one element from another would be 16, or distance between this element from the other would be 16. It's all up to you, right? As I said, for this spacing, for this gutter, it's your preference. If you want to be tight, you're the designer. If you want to be too far apart, you're the designer. But I regularly stick with 20 pixels between them. And 20 is within my type scale because it's divisible by 4, right? So this is for the grid. Now, how do I work with this grid? When I don't want to design, everything I'm designing has to end at this line, right? It has to end at this line. I'm designing a button, it ends at this line. If I want to design a logo, it ends at this line. Except in an instance where I want an image, then it can now span maybe up to this part. Maybe can I span just like that, right? It's up. This is the only scenario where I would go with my grid. But as I said, the grid is for you, not you for the grid. So when needed, you break your grid. When needed, you break your grid. Also, you don't stop something, an element inside a gutter. What this will happen, what this would mean is that for your next element, right, it will be too tight, 8 pixels, except this is what you want. So you stop it in a column and you start from a column. You don't stop it inside there, you don't stop it halfway. But then it's for you, not you for it. So that's for grids. Then for the 60-30-10 rule, 60% goes to your neutral color. A neutral color is usually your white or your black, depending on your interface. It can also be a lighter shade of a primary color, right? So peradventure I'm working with blue, I can make my background to be something of this sort, maybe something of this sort. Now this takes 60% of my design because it takes a larger space, right? Now 30% is usually to your complementary colors. So this can be both your text and your primary color maybe, right? Now the 10% is your accent colors. These are your call to action colors. In a monochromatic system, the accent color is actually your primary color. So that's what you use to denote your buttons, your actions, stuff like that. So in a monochromatic color scheme, your accent color, your 10% is actually your primary color. 60% goes to your background color, gray, white, black. 30% goes to maybe your text color, right? Which is a darker shade of but along the line, it's a darker shade of your primary color. Remember, you made a system, right? A color scheme. Now the color scheme is a dark one, there's a light one. The lightest one can be your background, right? It can be your background. Now the darkest one can be your text. The reason we use a darker shade of your primary color for your text color is to form a sense of harmony between your designs. If my text color is way too black, right, like black, my primary color is maybe a shade of green. You might not notice it, but if you want your design to actually stand out, there is a difference between that total black and a shade of black that has some parts of your primary color. How do I mean? So this say my primary color, let's say we use this as a primary color. If I want to get my text color, right, what I do, I go down to somewhere around this part. Yeah, so it might look like black, but it's not entirely black. Now, if peradventure I write a text, yeah, and this button is elsewhere, maybe the primary color is elsewhere. If I use a darker shade of this, to those that use high, um, their contrast on their brightness on their device is very high. The contrast of this will be less on their eyes than if I use a typical black. You might not notice it because I'm sharing my screen, but if you really look into it, this is just typical black, right? But this has a tone of the color, so there's a certain level of harmony between them. But they are, when you read some books, then you get to know more about this stuff. So because of our time, I'll just dive into what we have for today and talking about typography, right? Typography generally is text. In the design, this is typography, and this is where you style your text. Oh yeah, you should style your text. So typography, the art and technique of arranging type to make written languages legible, readable, and appealing when displayed. So basically, it's you combining text, combining type just to make your written language more readable, more legible, and accessible to users. So for legibility, your type scale has to be legible. Whatever font you decide to choose, whatever type scale you decide to choose, it has to be legible enough so people can see what you are saying at each point in time, right? It also has to be readable. Now, I would not want to strain my eyes when reading your content, especially when you are working on digital platforms. If it's for a newspaper, we know that okay, you're trying to put too many information into one booklet, so that's safe. But if it's for digital platforms, then it has to be legible enough because we don't know who's reading it. It might be a 60-year-old man using that platform, right? And it has to be readable enough. The spacing has to be wide enough for him to see it. Basic typography terms. Now, people always confuse font with typeface. What font are you using? What font is that? What font is that? Yeah. But now, font is a general name. Sorry, typeface is a general name. Yeah. Now, font is a subset of typeface. Typeface is what you see as Lato, Roboto, Helvetica, Times New Roman. Now, those are typefaces, right? But font is when you now start digging deeper. Font is when you start digging deeper. How do I explain this? So now this is your typeface. What typeface are you using? I'm using Lato at the moment. But what font is this? Lato semi-bold. That's the font. But the typeface is Lato. Or people usually interchange it. So just the way I am and am is now interchanged, it becomes a norm. But in real sense, your typeface is the general name, while your font is what was used at that point. Right? Now you can use more than one font in the design. I can use medium, bold, regular, semi-bold in a design. But it's advisable to use a maximum of 2 typefaces in a design. So if you're using a Lato and cabinet cross check, that's fine. Right? So those are typefaces, but font you can use 5 fonts in one design. Now letter and line spacing. So in this case, right, this is letter spacing. If I zoom in, the spacing between H and M, that's what we call letter spacing. So you can make it tighter, right? So you start seeing that it's now tight. Although it's not advisable to make it this tight, because then I can't make sense of what this is. You can make it farther apart, right? But then it's not advisable to make it farther apart like this because it now takes too much time trying to merge it together mentally and forming a word. The default is 0 pixels. But when you are creating for headlines, you know those big headlines that says um, just big headlines, you know those on your website that say there maybe every big headline like this probably gives you about a 64 pixels size. Now when you are doing for headlines like this, it's advisable to make your letter spacing a little bit tighter, right? A little bit tighter. So I usually go minus zero point 0.5, so it's a little bit tighter. Like if you come, let me just track back. So this is when it was 0. Now there's more space. And if I push it down a bit, say I go maybe minus 1. Now it's a little bit tighter. I like keeping my own at minus zero point 0.5, just so it's a little bit tighter up there, right? Now that's for letter spacing. Now line spacing is if I have more than, say in this case I have 2 lines. This is 1 line. Capture your SMS readout. That's 1 line. Burning units is another line. Yeah, burning units is another line. Now the distance between this C and this top of this B is what we call line spacing. Now this is where you modify your line spacing on Figma. Yeah, that's your modify your line spacing. It's called line height on Figma. Then the distance between this is line spacing. So for line height, if you are working with, say you're writing a body text, a long body text. So for line height, 140 pixels upward is advisable. So there are 2 ways. Now, if you click on your normal text, now what Figma gave you is auto, meaning automatic. The original one, the person that created Lato put auto. Now, if you want to modify it, if you click into it, you will now see the actual value 77. Now, what I do, there are different ways to make it work, different ways to manipulate your line height. So one way is sticking with a scale, say 140%. That is the line height for your body text, right? Another one is working with your type scale. So remember, our type scale should be divisible by 8. So if I have my type scale, for this font size that is 64, the line height is 77, right? So the next for my line height is 77 with my spacing scale is 80 pixels. So I go 80 pixels and then it's a little bit wider apart. Now for your normal text, which is 16 pixels, your normal body text, which is 16 pixels like this, right? Let me just do auto here so you see it. And then instead of 0 0.5, I leave it at 0. Now I have this for my normal text. Now if I'm writing more than 1 line, so say I'm writing all these be 4 lines like this or 5 lines. And the line height between them is tight because if I'm reading this, chances are high that I'll read 1 line twice. If I'm reading it like this, chances are very high that I'll read 1 line twice. So there ought to be a certain level of space between them. Now, working with what we said, if you go the route of, say, 140%, now this is what you get, which works, right? If you go, what we have now is 19, and next scale is 24 pixels. Because 20 does not do the job. 20 is still too tight. So if we change this to 24 pixels, we have, I think, almost the same thing we had for 140 pixels, right? So if you have a consistent scale, spacing scale, type scale, it will help you in making decisions faster. We talked about letter spacing, we talked about line spacing. Letter spacing, the spaces between two letters, C and A. Line spacing is the spacing between two lines. Capture your and unit capture, right? Capture line spacing. Font width, height, and size. Now, font width, height, and size is this is the width, right? This is semi-bold, bold, extra bold as font width. Font size, that is 16. If I want to use 24 pixels, I increase the size, and it's 24 pixels. Then, what is the third one? Height. The height is what we talked about on line spacing, right? So that's the height. We talked about it. Distance between this and this. That's your height. So why should I care about modifying my type? What does it even matter? I mean, people have taken their time to do this. People have taken their time to do this, so why don't I just use what they do and get on with it? So when a user visits your website, your mobile app, right, instead of reading all the text you have, what they do often is they just scan through, move from top to bottom and scan through, right? Now, if the layout is organized, right, and the typography is scannable, it is well organized, it's readable, the hierarchy is proper, it would increase the chances of keeping the user. Now you can go to a website and just see that it's too big or it's not readable enough. Probably the letter spacing, so probably the letter spacing is too tight. Maybe it's too tight, right? I'm having difficulty reading it. Or maybe the line height is too wide. I'm having to join them too much. Or it's too small. I'm having to read one line two times, right? Now all these things can make a user leave. So why should you care about working on your typography when designing? It enhances UI readability, legibility, and accessibility. For example, on this screen, right, you could see that if I'm scanning this page, what my eye will catch first is this architecture because it's bigger, right? Architecture. Now, next one is this. Then I'm seeing some here, and it's easy to scan. Of course, layout has a huge role to play here also. Your layout, your aesthetics of your design has a huge role to play. But then we cannot remove typography. We cannot remove the typography from contributing to this, right? So it enhances UI readability, accessibility, and legibility. It helps the user scan through, so that they can decide if they want to consume the information you have or not. One moment, sorry. Now the next one is it sets a consistent tone and mood. Now the style you pick determines how your user will feel. Now if you pick a shouty style, if you pick a font, input, a font style, of course it depends on what you're working on. If I'm working on a fintech platform, I don't expect to pick a font style because my users will feel like you play with my money, right? They will not trust your platform. If I'm working on a game product, maybe I'm working on a gaming site, right, or a game file, right. Now the user will feel they'll feel at home because the type scale you chose is already making them feel at home, right? So it sets a consistent tone and mood for your platform. So your type scale, your typography also helps in personalizing your page. If you use a type scale that is simple and plain, people will take it as a very formal platform. So anything they're doing there has a documented process, right? If I see rounded corners of type scale, I see colors, different colors of type scale, different font at different location. It gives this sense of okay, anything goes. Let's go, anything goes. So it sets a consistent tone and mood. And it also makes your app stand out from others. Now, of course, if you use different platforms, well, now as a designer, along the line, prior to when came into design, you did not pay too much attention to colors or to how things were positioned. All you were concerned about was most likely does it work? If I click on the button, does it buy? Does it pay? That was all your concern. Now that you're now in, you can now see that okay, this I can't see this text too much. The contrast is not right. This text is too big here. It doesn't make the hierarchy is not flowing. So now typography makes your app stand out in the sense that people that do not pay attention to the type they use, they just if you check, no offense at the Indians, right? But if you go on the Play Store and just search for some mobile applications, you see that the typeface used is really not too great, right? So you just want to see how it works and leave. Nothing is like let me stay here because I enjoy reading. That's why more often than not, mobile apps that make you read read books on it. They give you the option to customize your type, customize the typography to suit your need because what works for me when reading a book might not work for you. So using high quality typography gives your design a professional look. If you are aiming to look professional, it gives that, and then your users are more likely going to revert to your product. It might not be the only reason, right? But it can be the only reason for some people going back to your platform because the type scale you used was something that was made your text or your content legible, readable, and scannable. So they can easily digest information when they're on your product, right? Now, another reason why you should care about the type scale you use, the font you use, and how you use your typography is because it boosts product sales. Now we highlighted that if your type scale, your typography does not is not scannable, I would come on your platform, scan through, and leave. Right now, you've lost the $1 million I want to give you. But if your typography is scannable, if you use the good type, I did scan, I was able to digest, and I want to find out more, I want to know more. Then you've done your part as a designer. You brought the user to stay, right? Now the UX writer who is in charge of the micro copy, that's where they now play a huge role in making sure that the way they position their talk is able to reach the soul of the user or the potential user to buy your platform or buy your product, right? So, but if you do not make them stay, they would not, the UX copy would, even if you had an awesome copy, but if I cannot read that copy, probably as we illustrated earlier, if it's too tight, I'm having to read one line almost 4 times, I would leave. Now it's not the UX writer's fault. She did a fantastic job. She did a fantastic job. Well, the designer did not do a proper job because he did not give an adequate line height. So what's a good typography? How should I pick typography? I mean, there are many typography outside there, so why should I? What makes a typography good typography? So it invites the reader to read, right? It makes you want to know more about it. Like what we just saw here. Yes, I know this architecture, but then it made me want to read it completely. So it invites me to read. Now, it reveals the meaning of the text in the sense that with other elements that are around, of course, supporting elements, if I use this architecture, I'm seeing an um, a hallway here, right? And then I'm seeing pillars. It's giving me the vibe of architect because the text already says architecture. Now I'm seeing an image that complements it. So it gives me meaning to the text, right? Now clarify the structure and the order of the text. There might be some type scale that, for example, in this one, galleries, well, when you go deep into anatomy of type, when you know about what the baseline is, the eye, the ear, you might not really have to go too deep into that because more often than not, it's advisable to copy from the best, right? If top brands, probably I'm building a social media platforms and I go out there and then do my research. If I'm responsible for branding of the company, I do my research on what top brands are using their typography. There's no need me going to do something different because falling back to our laws of UX, right? The Miller's law, where users expect to to have the same experience they have in other platforms as in yours, which claims to be like other platforms. So if I go to another platform, I'm seeing something else, maybe a sans serif, and I come to yours and I'm seeing a calligraphic typography, there's a problem there, right? So more often than not, you might not need this clarify the structure and the order of the text. But yes, a good typography helps in clarifying the structure of the text. Does the Y has a longer descending? Does the P has a longer ascending? Is I and L small letter, do they look alike? Those are the small things you look out for when choosing typography. The I and the L. Peradventure, I want to write a text, and then I and L has to be together. For example, this link, L and I, does the I have a dot? Because there are some type of typography that L and I look alike. The one and the small letter L look alike. Now, in your platform, when you are using, in your product, when you are using this text for different meaning, will the user confuse one to be L? And also, your typography has to have a minimum of 5 fonts. Uh, 5 fonts, but let me just say 5 font widths. By font width, I mean regular, medium, bold, extra bold, black, minimum of 5. Now, if I come to Lato, Lato has regular, medium, semi-bold, bold, extra bold, and black. More often than not, we do not use light, extra light, thin hairline in our digital platforms. Because if I use light, it is too light for user to read. From a distance, it is too light for users to read basically. So we start from regular. We start from regular. Then we move to medium, then semi-bold, and then bold, as the case may be. Or let's take, for example, let's look at something else. If this one has 5 also. But if you look at another, a different type, there are some typefaces that they have very, like this one has just one, which is regular, right? So for your digital products, it's not advisable to use typefaces with only one or with less than 5 font width. So yeah, good typography establishes a strong visual hierarchy, provides a graphic balance to your presentation, and sets the overall tone. Going back to this sample, right? This already gives me a proper hierarchy in this sense. This with the image already lets me know that this is an architectural based magazine. So it has set the tone, it has set the style of the platform. type of typefaces. So classifications. So we have serif, sans serif, calligraphic, and experimental. So serif, actually, they usually have to know it's serif from the sans serif. Serif has something that pops away, right? So it has something that pops away from their text. Like in this A, you see there's a small cut at the top. This G, there's a small thing on the right. Now it's usually used for platforms that are um um so what I'm trying to get. But for fintech, e-commerce platforms usually use serif forms because we want to show a sense of formality and a sense of playfulness because we don't want you to be overly serious, right? But then law firms, legislative platforms, financial platforms, brokerage platforms, they use sans serif, right? Sans serif. So they don't have this cutout. They are formal, telling that we mean business. Down to our typeface, we took time in doing all these things. Calligraphic is like handwriting. These are mostly used if you are designing posters, if you are birthday cards, condolences visit cards and stuff. Experimental, I do not think we use this in your design except you want to do something rash, right? But then experimental typefaces are weird typefaces, the one that you have to think before you know what it is. I mean, this is a V, is an A, this is a Y, and you just have to think about experimental. So if that's your aim, then go for it. More often than not, you would stay between sans serif and serif. If you don't know how to go, if you are in doubt where to go, just go for sans serif. If you're in doubt how to go, just go for sans serif. So how do you pick a typeface? So these are 6 ways of picking a typeface. Purpose and mood. What mood you want to denote on your platform? What type of text are you going to use? What kind of copy? Is it going to be formal? Is it going to be informal? That will decide the typeface you pick, right? Content. What content will be in there? Will there be, is it a content field platform or an image field platform? And if it's a newsletter platform or a newspaper platform, then you decide, okay, because not all typefaces have good line height. So even though you can maneuver the line height, for more often than not, the default line height usually work. So only when you're not working with multiple lines, then you can now decide to use your type scale, use your spacing scale to work with your line height. Functionality, where would the font be used, right? Would it be for big phones? Is it for the middle-aged? Is it for the elderly? Is it for the youths? If it's for the elderly, then I might want to stick with my sans serif because I don't want the elderly seeing, getting all this and they having to think, why is it G this way? But normal G I know is this way, right? Functionality, versatility, would it be used in different platforms? So would it be used in posters? Because if you are establishing a brand style, your brand style has to be consistent. I mean, I would want to be seeing calligraphic in this place, and then I come across another platform elsewhere that appears your name, and the typeface I'm seeing is an experimental typeface. So meaning it might not be you, and I might not patronize them. I mean, she just lost another $1 million from me, right? So it has to be versatile. So how versatile will it be? Will it be used on website, or will it be for only phone, or just for marketing? The language, of course, we know that language differ. So if I'm working for the Arabians, I would not want to use typefaces that are too formal because in their own natural type, right, in their own natural text, ABCD, there are some level of serif in it. So I will most likely go for a serif typeface. So I can draw my platform, I can bring it home to something they are relatable, something they can relate with. So another one is to test it, right? So of course, after using your typeface, you test it in platforms. There are some typefaces that might look so good on design, but when you log it into actually an actual app, an actual um, website, the way the computer will render it might not be the same way you thought it would be rendered. So you can also test all this. There might be some that you on your face they are readable, but when it comes into a smaller screen, right? When you are using a probably 5.5 inches screen, you'll see that it's not really too readable. So as you use, always remember to test so that you don't have to do one thing two times. Combining typefaces, right? So of course we know that it's advisable to use just one typeface around, just one typeface all through. But sometimes you want to distinguish between your header and your body. I want to distinguish between my subheadings and my body texts. Some people use all caps to just differentiate them. You just type in all caps for the header and then the body text can take sentence cases. Another way to achieve this is by combining typefaces. But then how do I combine typefaces? I mean, what if I just choose to abstract typefaces? Would it work? So more often than not, you combine serif and sans serif. Serif being your header and then sans serif being your body text. If I draw you back to this, now if you notice, if it's I can't zoom in on this though, but okay. So if you notice, it's kind of blur, but now the as I said, some people want to use all caps here just to differentiate it. Well, now this architecture and this we decided to use a class diagram instead of an object diagram. They are both different typefaces. Now this is a sans serif because we can see that this is serif because we can see that the arrow has a cutout, right? The T has a cutout. But the body text actually is serif, a sans serif font. The body text actually is sans serif font because you can see that the arrow does not have a cutout. The I does not have a cutout. It looks formal. Now this is the perfect combination of fonts, of typefaces. A sans serif as your header, and sorry, a serif as your header, and a sans serif as your body. Sorry for confusing you. I'm guilty of also mixing fonts and typefaces, but when I'm conscious about it, I say what is what. So typeface is what you know as Roboto, Lato, and all that. A font is running as Roboto Bold, Roboto Medium, Roboto Italics. Now those are fonts. So choose an anchor typeface. Now what will be your main typeface? So would it be serif or sans serif? Now more often than not, use your body text because that's what we use all through your products. Because you will not be times we have headers very limited, except when you want to break a flow, so you use headers. Otherwise, it's body text users should be reading. So you want to use that as your anchor text. So it has to suit your brand style, it has to suit your goal. Next is find a complementary typeface. This is where you now go into finding a serif that can work, a serif that can combine with your typeface that works. Now, there's a place where you can see platforms that use two typefaces that merge it so well and it works. You could have a list of typefaces you want to explore, and then you can just explore them. Next is narrow down your choices. So now when you get into this website, you see that there are many typefaces available, so many. Which one do I pick? Then you now go to seeing what other platforms are using, top existing brands. I mean, if their typeface had a problem, they would have known and they would have changed it, right? So if they're using this, meaning they did a lot of work in the research and then they decided to go with this. So you can adopt that too. But now some of their own platform, their own typefaces are paid, and you might not be able to use it for commercial use. So you then look for one that is close to it, and then you merge it with your body text, with your anchor typeface, and you have a combined typefaces, right? Now, instead of all the stress, just stick with one typeface. If you're using Lato, just use weight, which is font, to differentiate hierarchy. But then you will see the difference using one typeface from another. I'll just show you a quick sample. So now this is one platform. So if you look at this, these are two typefaces in action. This is display, Playfair display, and this is Noto Sounds. This is my anchor typeface, which is my body typeface, which is sans serif, right? Now this is my complementing typeface, which is my header typeface, which is a serif. Now see the difference with this one, and see how this looks. It's a serif with a sans serif. Now see how this other platform looks. Yeah, so this is just using one typeface. This is the same sharp sounds, just using one typeface. Now, if I change this to have our Playfair display, this is how it will look like. Now, compare this guy and this guy. You see that this one draws you closer compared to the second one because there's a difference in type. So this is where you might want to learn how to combine typefaces appropriately. But when in doubt, when you don't know, you don't want to go south, then it's safe to stick with just one typeface. So over here, it's a sample of when you have just single typeface. This is just one type family, right? This is just one. Now this one you have two. This is one, and then this another. So well, in this case, this person used a different, probably a sans serif as their their body text. So best practices when using type. So we talked about what typeface are, types of typeface. Talked about why we should do them. It makes your design consistent, sets the tone, makes it readable and legible enough. We talked about what makes a good typography and how to combine typefaces. Now, what are the best practices in using this typeface you've combined or you've selected? So more content equals more spacing. Now, this is a very long text, very long text. Now, there's no space in between them. It might look too clustered, too congested compared to the one on the right. You can see that, okay, there's a space here. It gives the user a sense of, okay, let me just take this in sections. Let me read from year to year. I have a place to probably pause a bit and then start again from year to year, right? But in this case, it's more like I have to read from up down before I then know what's happening. So when you're having something like this, when you're having more a text saturated platform, break them into sections and then give spacing between them. In this one, let me just choose Noto Sounds. So in this one, if I want to say have this, I could break this part and as I was still able to send my message to my user, right? But then I have broken it into two for them so they can read in sections. So they can read sections. Now this is more readable compared to if I just pump it inside here. Now this is more readable compared to this because you've utilized white space here. Now the user can then chunk it up and then take it in blocks. Yes, yes, Samiha. Yeah.
Sorry, sir, it was a mistake. I wasn't trying to ask a question. Thank you, sir.
All right, that's fine. So more content, more spacing, right? So if you're having large content, then break it into sections for them. I see people making the mistake of using enter to create white space. Now, what this would mean is that you cannot track it. You cannot track the distance between this to this. So, and of course, consistency is a big thing when it comes to design. Now, if I'm here and then I don't know, is it three enter I put here or is it two? I might use two. Now, if you are reading all this, this is larger than this. So I might then a law of UX reach proximity, there's a problem because I might feel that this thing is closer to this and this is standing alone. So what you should do is wherever you want to make a break, where you want to give a space, cut it, create a new type, a new text layer, and continue your text, right? So more content, more spacing. Second one is choosing the type, right typeface.
Okay.
So of course,
Where are you going
this
to? Uh, I have a feeling you are
let's
going
see,
to the apartment.
let's see. So um, choosing the right type. Now, if I want to probably now this, if you can guess, this is a Mario kind of game font. Now it gives you retro vibe. This is like Mario. If you guys played Mario when you're growing up, this is like that. Your style is pixelated, pixel art, right? So if that is your aim, then your typeface should already say what you're talking about. So choose the right type. And we've talked about how to choose type. Of course, all niches, different niches have different type. So if I should use a random Google search that says the typeface for banking apps. Now yeah, I see that they're already telling me that if you're working on the finance project, then try using CrossCheck or Lato, Open Sans, Montserrat. Now all these are sans, which are sans serif. So and that we said that sans serifs are giving off the formal vibe. So finance, of course, you want to give off the formal vibe. Talking about mixing fonts. So in this case now you can see that this person mixed a, a serif, right? Because of this cutout. He mixed the serif with the calligraphy with a sans serif and see what it resulted in. It doesn't look too great. So if you're in doubt, as I said earlier, just stick to one. If you're in doubt, so that can this work? Does this work? Stick to one. Always feel free to test your choices. Don't be inside a box. Be creative. That's who you are. You're creative. You can as well create a part, right? It works. But then it has to be backed, of course. Pay attention to letter spacing. We've talked about letter spacing and line height. Now, as you can see in this case, which example is easier to read? We all know it's this one because if I'm reading this, I might read this line twice if probably you have the same beginning. I am a boy who is going to this and then I am a boy. So I might think that I am still in my first line. Meanwhile, so I might think I'm my second line. Meanwhile, I'm my first line. Now imagine the frustration when I have to read my one line almost three times before I then see that oh I've read this before. That's where line height comes into play. So use your line height to work for you and your your, your content will be easily scannable. Right. So create a visual hierarchy. We talked about hierarchy. Hierarchy is you drawing the user to where you want them to be. So if you want the user to be, if you want them to look at this, what we do at the top, give it a different font width, which is bold or semi-bold or extra black, and then give this one zone, right, regular. if you can see inside this one, there's a section that is also bold. You want them to pay more attention there. If you are scanning, you see again that there's one that's underlined. It's the same regular, but it's underlined and it's colored, letting you know, okay, this is a link, you can click on it, right? And just use your typeface to create a visual hierarchy. So I'll just explain how to use all these. So I know when we're talking about design, and we're talking about Figma interface, we captured all this part, and then we talked about the panels, we talked about this part, we talked about when we are drawing a rectangle or a shape, what all this signify, but we didn't really deep dive for a text. So for text, unlike if you are drawing a shape does not have this text layer or this text property layer. So for text, as we already agreed, right, that this is a typeface. So you can select a typeface. You can punch in the typeface you want to have here, and say I want a Poppins, right? Poppins, and I have my Poppins now, so it changes, right? Another quick shortcut now, if I want to change all the typeface in my interface, one way to do it is go one by one, or I could change this one. Maybe I want it to be Poppins now. Let's use Lato, right? So I can change this to Lato. Yeah, I can change it to Lato. Now I want this every other person to change to Lato. It's something we call copy style, copy and replace style. Now I could click on this. This is the one I just changed. If I right click on it and I use copy properties, right? What it does is it copy the color, copy the line height, copy the font size, copy the font width, copy the typeface of this text. Copy properties, I've copied it. I can now come to this one and say paste properties. Now it has changed to Lato 1624, just like this guy, Lato, right? Now, if I want to do it for every other person, I can then go one by one, or I can just use holding my shift key to select. I click on this, hold shift, select, right click, and then paste properties. Then everybody has the properties of what I want. Now this is for a case where I can see maybe it's not too much. What if I want to do this in large scale? Maybe everything in my canvas, maybe everything in my Figma design, I want to change the font to a particular font. So I can select one of these. Now coming to this menu section, main menu. You know I said as we go on, we then uncover what all these things do. Now coming to this main menu, if I go to edit, um, at the last you see select all with. You then see select all with same properties, same fields, same stroke, same effect, same text properties, same font. Click on same font. Now it selects everything that has same font. So as you can see, everything I did here, this guy, this guy, this guy, this one, they all have the same font, which is Lato, right? So I can then decide to change maybe all the fonts or something, maybe play and display, play first display, and then change everything. Now every single thing that was selected we change to play fair display. Come to the top, this one too has changed from what it was before to what I've selected it to be now. Now it did not affect these other guys because they were these Noto sounds. It was not Lato. Remember, we said everything bearing Lato should change to the fair display, but it did not highlight these guys. Now let me highlight these guys so you see how it is. So I click on it, I come here, view, sorry, edit, select all with same font. Now it has selected them. So I can then change it to be Monitor, and it has changed now to Monitor. That's about quickly changing your typeface and type. You can also do the same thing if you have probably like this one now is 1624. Let me change this one to instead of 24, give me 26, right? So if I want to select this one, let's say same text properties, it will not highlight this one because the text properties of these two is 1624, but of this one is 1626. So it will not. So you see why staying consistent usually works, it's usually advisable, so that when you want to change whatever, you can easily change it. Now this is your typeface, you can change to what you want. This is your weight, you can change to whatever you want to use to denote hierarchy. Because now the weight is usually used to denote hierarchy. If I make this part bold and this part regular, meaning I want you to pay more attention to this part, I want you to know that this is the title and this is the body. Now this is, we talked about it, your letter spacing, spacing between C and A. So if I put it at 1 pixel, now you see that it has increased spacing, right? More often than not, I leave it at 0 pixels because the person that did it before it was approved, it was a partial process, so it can be accepted. And the next is the line height. We spoke about line height. What usually there is auto, so you can type in auto if you want to revert back to what you were using before. But because if it's more than 2 lines, right? So we want to give it a little bit space so that a little bit line spacing so that users can read it well. Then we then look at our next type scale. Our next spacing in our spacing scale, and then we use 24, and then we have this, right? If you don't want to be doing the if you don't want to revert back to the spacing scale often, then just take the 140 to 145%. That 140, 142, or 145%, and it gives you what you want, right? Actually 145% is what you want. This is paragraph spacing. You will most likely not use this, but this is, of course, if you used enter. If you use enter, then you will now want to do this paragraph spacing. So if I use enter just once, then I want to include a paragraph spacing, 16 pixels, and then the space between this is now 16 pixels. But then it's still one text, but it's a space here, right? Now these ones are more like alignment. So do I want it to be the whole, like, so this is one text. In real sense, this is how the text is. It keeps on going. I would want to reduce it to fit my frame, right? So these three things are to decide how do you want your type to be, how do you want your text to work. So I want it to be auto. It means that if I continue typing, all it does is it increases in width, right? It just keeps going. But if I want to be auto height, right? It means that at this point, this is the max you can go. Any other thing I type, break it for me into the next line, right? If I keep on typing, once you get there, it breaks it to the next line. That's what auto width. As this is more like fixed. So now you see this thing, which 1051 by 60, this is the max it should go. Any other thing that goes inside is going on its own. As you can see, it is there, but it's on its own, right? So more often than not, you'll be using this one because it would be inside the frame, inside your frame. So that's for this. Now this is if you're aligning text. So right now it is left aligned, meaning everything is coming from the left. I keep on going from the left. Now if I move it to center align, so that everything is now coming from the center. Meaning if I start typing, it's expanding from the middle. It's expanding from the middle. If I give it right align, Now everything I'm doing starts coming on the right hand side, right? Now, one thing you should also know is that if you are probably designing and then you have maybe an image here and you have a text, you have a text. Now, if your image is at the center, your text should be center aligned, right? If your image is at the center, your text should be center aligned. If your image is at the left hand side, I imagine the user scanning, coming down, then it comes here and it goes middle. Doesn't make too much sense in terms of scannability. The text should also be left aligned. Now they know that if it's this, so it's left to right, left to right. But if it's at the center, right, then you've already let them know from the onset that you will be reading from the middle, so prepare your mind, right? So I think we've talked about this, the right align. Now this one is if you want to, so if I want to start typing again, maybe I have this and now start typing. Right now it will start from the top. Let's leave it at, let's fix the size. Right now if I start typing, to start from the top, middle, plus top, middle. Or if I want it to start from the middle, that is, I will come here and select this. So it will start from the middle. If I want it to start from the bottom, maybe I want to start bottom up. I will come and select this. Now it starts from the bottom up. If I keep going, it keeps on going up, right? Until it reaches its max and then keeps on breaking. Because we said fixed width. I want auto height. This is how it will be like, right? When typing, then it starts coming down. Now, if you look inside, if you see on your type scale, on your typography property layer, there's a 3 dots there, type setting. Click on it, you then can manually customize this to your footing. So this top part was what we talked about here, resizing. So we have auto width, we have auto height, we have fixed size. There is a last one called truncate text. It's a new feature Figma brought in. So if you are designing for different layouts, let's say we are designing for, let's say I have a modal. Let me just say I have this text. I have this text and probably it's an auto layout and let me give that 4. So if I'm typing and I use truncate text, right? So I'm saying that at this current width, anything more than it, give me ellipses, just give me dot dot dot, right? Like don't show it. So as you can see, it does not affect my, as you can see there's dot 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 now. Maybe there are more things to stay. It does not affect my design. But the moment I scale, the moment I increase my, let's say I increase my, so where you can scale it up that this one would then, it then shows. The moment I increase my layout, the moment I design for a different screen, right? I increase my current layout, then these guys begin to show as they come. One sec, I'll just continue. Now as I keep on expanding, the stat is now showing. So maybe this is my for mobile. Now this for 5.5 inches mobile. Now at this point, what you will see is SMS with O, right? Now if it goes higher, maybe it now gets to a big iPhone 14, right? It's now very big. What you then see is more text. Now there are more things. Now if I keep on going, you then get to now see other characters. Now this is designing for responsiveness. So at a smaller screen, this is what the user will see. At a bigger screen, this is what they will see. At a very big screen, this is what they will see. Right? Stuff like that. So that is what this truncate text says. If I want to go back, I can just come and then click on this and then I have my text. Next one is alignment. Next one is alignment. We have the left aligned, we have center, we have right, and then we have justify. Justify just gives it allows it to make sense. So, but then at the expense of your spacing. So the letter spacing then increases. It's not really too great, right? Because I now have to merge things to form some to make some sense. But there are some use cases you might use them, and I've not used it before, so I don't need it. I've not used it. But in the case where I would need it, I have the feature also to justify the text. It just uses your current screen width to justify your text accordingly, right? So if it's, of course, if it's smaller, it then justifies it accordingly. Then this is decoration. So if I want to underline all these, I can then click on underline and then everything is underlined. If I want to underline just the SMS, I can highlight it and then underline and then she's underlined. While highlighted, I can then change the color to what I want, right? Because I highlighted it and I'm modifying just it. So we have underline, we have stroke. If, for example, probably when you're designing an e-commerce checkout screen and then you want to let the user know that they are done with the first stage and you want to stroke it out, maybe the first stage is this justified. Left align, please. Maybe the first stage is information. So I want to let the user know that you are done with information. You are now in probably delivering. There are two ways to convey that this information. I could make this guy the current state with me using my color, telling him that okay, you are done with this, you're now here. I could de-emphasize this, so you are done with this one here. Or I could, while doing this to be my color, I could stroke this out. So let them know they are done with this, you're now here. Right. So that's the use of that stroke. If maybe you want to, if you're writing a text and then say you are working with gender equality, right? You can now say probably free for men. You can then strike out these men and then let them that you're not free for men, you're free for all. So you've used the strikeout functionality here, and then you also emphasize that it's not just men, we are now incorporating everybody. So that's where you use the strikeout feature. Paragraph spacing is this paragraph spacing. If eventually I want to use the enter, now this is 16. Ideally, if this is 0, right? The enter will be probably here, just utilizing the line height. But if I use my paragraph spacing to be 16, distance between this line and this line now becomes 16 pixels. Paragraph indent. I doubt if I've used this before. I don't see the need, but you know how you're using tabs on your Microsoft Word. If you want to push it inside, so you could just use indent and it pushes it inside. Meanwhile, the other person or the other content under might just be start from here. So instead of using space to make it right, you could just use that indent and then just give it 12 pixels inside, and then all the paragraph in there just pushes inside by 12. So I said all this are actually experiment, and you just wanted to know what does this do. So that means that I cannot do it for just one. I have to do it for the whole block. I can't do it for just free for all. I just tried it just now. It didn't work. So the next one is list styles. So if I have multiple things here, then I want to list them, maybe bullet points, right? I can now do like this, then free for all. If I continue, if I hit enter again, it gives me another point. I hit enter, give me another point, and I proceed from there. This has different paragraph spacing, so I can give it, and then they all have their own. People that want to use Figma to do Microsoft Word, yeah, this is for you. Yeah. Then this is for 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5, 6, 7, 8. List spacing is what we just talked about. After you increase your, when you put your list style, then the spacing between them, if you want to make it 2, so that it's tighter. If you want to make it 8, right, so that it is. Everything you do, make sure you stay within your spacing scale. The last one here is case. So for case, you can either go all caps or small letters, sentence case, all caps also, or small caps, then first small cap, and everything becomes small caps. So just you making, doing what you want to do, right? If you want to use it, instead of coming, probably you've typed before, you've typed in this small letter, now you now want to delete it, probably you come back with a feedback saying that you want all this to be all caps, and then you now start thinking, should I start typing it again? It's too much. Or maybe you copy a content from what the copywriter gives you and then you paste it, and then you see that it's in all caps. So I now start typing it one by one. So you can come in here and then just select it, change it to all caps, and then everything there changes to all caps. If you want smaller all caps, so it's giving smaller all caps. And this one is first smaller all caps. As you can see in this one, the first letter is still big cap, but then if you come here, it forces everything to be small caps, and then you can work with that. So in our next class, which is tomorrow, we'll talk about how to create your typography scale. What's the minimum typeface you should use, what the maximum you should use, when to use it, how to create typography scale. I'll drop the resource and outline today on the Slack channel. You can go through it, and then tomorrow we'll talk about how to create typography scale, and then we'll use a typography scale in practice. We'll use a created typography scale. We will use it to practice, and then we'll see how that works. So we ended today's class here. I think we've spoken about what typography is, talking about what constitutes typography to be legible as readable. Talked about differentiating between typeface and fonts, line height and letter spacing, font weight and size, why you should handle typography, what it does to your design, its consistent mode, and then of course it boosts sales. If it's readable, if it's legible, I would click on it. I would stay more to read more, consume more, so that it can then convince me to make a purchase. If it's readable and clear. If it's not, I would just leave. Except then your image and layout then augment for your lacking proper typography. What makes a good typography? Types, how to pick typography, how to pick typefaces, how to combine them, talk about best practices, which is giving more spaces, using the right type to denote what you are doing, right? Reducing choices of picking typefaces, paying attention to letter spacing so that it is clearly readable, create visual hierarchy, using the font weight to do that. We talked about how to use the digested this type property panel, what this does, what all these do, experimented with all those, even going down into the typesetting, everything what all these do. Mind you, there are previews up here, so if you want to, before you effect it, if I hover on it, I then see how it will look like. If I hover on it, you see how it will look like before. If it doesn't work for you, then you go to the next one. So on that note, I'll stop sharing now. But before that, does anyone have any questions so far?
Yes, I have questions. Good evening.
Yeah, so you have 2 minutes for that question because I need to hop off
And I
soon.
just need
Yeah.
you to please do a rundown of are there the for the grid layout. Is there something like a fixed scale for them, maybe for the mobile and the website that we can just work with?
Yes, yes, yes. I think I've said that about 4 times now, if I'm not mistaken, before last our last class, even in this class, right? So if you watch this video, the first 10 minutes handles
All
that
right
particular
then.
question. Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, Nancy, hit
Hello,
me.
good evening, Simon.
Yeah,
Simon.
good evening.
Good evening. Okay, I wanted to ask, as regards to our assignment,
Hey,
you
may
you
have
made comments. Can you hear me?
yes, I can hear you.
Okay, you made some comments on my own assignment actually. So I want to know if I should run with this assignment or I should just correct myself here, or should I go back and correct it? I don't know what to
No, no,
do.
that comment was just for you. That comment was for you to know why you got what you got. Yet, then probably make use of it in subsequent um, sessions. Correcting it also works. If you correct it, just let me know. I can check it out just for you and I, but it will not affect your grades because that has been marked, has been shipped out, and attended to. You understand? So if it's just for me to
Oh,
know if you've effected the correction properly, then that's safe between you and I.
okay, no problem. Thank
All
you.
right. Yes, send me out.
Sorry, what of those that don't have any comment on their assignment?
Yeah, so I couldn't comment on everybody's zone at every single time. So just the ones that I needed to highlight. Maybe I saw something that was pressing that I needed you to know before moving on. I commented. Others I might have skipped. So if you don't have
Okay,
any,
thank
maybe there isn't, or maybe I don't have the time to comment on everyone. Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Yes, Priscilla, sorry.
Okay, sir. Please, if not that you are in a hurry, maybe in the next class, if you can go through the glass effect a little for us, so we will know, and maybe the
Okay.
spacing scale, because I really had issue with the spacing scale, the calculation with the spacing. Maybe in the next class you go through it, and I want to ask you a very quick question.
Yeah.
In the column, when designing, you said we shouldn't let what we are designing enter the gutter, right?
Yes.
Stop in the gutter. So
Yes.
my question is, can it stop in between the columns?
Yes, it can stop in between the columns. But it shouldn't enter into the gutter. But if you can make it just stop
Okay.
at the end of a column, then that's fine. But if you can't, as I said, right, the grid is for you, not you for the grid. But whatever you do, make it consistent.
Okay.
You get?
So maybe in the next class, you tell us the glass effects and touch
Yeah,
a little bit of auto layout. I had issue there.
I don't think I've taught auto layout before, Sha, but okay. Let's see how the next class goes. It depends on what we have to cover for that day. But yes, probably in a workshop, maybe then we can handle that glass effect. But we can also do that in our next class if time permits. We could do that. If not, then in a workshop, whoever is taking you we can handle the glass effect. But yeah, if we have time for the next class, I will handle the glass effect. But some of you did fantastic in getting the glass effect. I was amazed. That's good stuff. But yeah, if there's time, we'll handle the glass effect. Yeah.
All right, thank you. I wanted to add to the glass effect as well, but since you mentioned it that you are going to do it in the next class, it's okay. Thank you.
All right, that's fine. Enjoy the night, everybody, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Yes. Okay, Sammy, how do you raise your hand? Or you've answered already.
Yes, sir. Please, I just wanted to ask you how you like put like a stroke over that man. How you did it, sir?
Yeah. So if you highlight on it, yeah, if you probably highlight this, I come into this part. You see where there is decoration, underline or stroke. So just click on strike two, and then it just strikes it through. So I just change the color just to emphasize it a bit from others. You understand?
Yes, sir. Yes, I do. Thank you very much for the class, sir.
Yeah, that's right. Udonchukwu and Praise. I don't know if you can your question hold on or is it pressing? Oh yeah, say something. Say something.
Okay, I'll ask it in the Slack channel. But the thing is, I did not get um feedback from the assignments. I've checked my mail.
At
I don't
all.
know if they've marked it. Yes, and I submitted.
Okay, yeah. After the Slack channel, I shall attend to that once I see it.
I can't hear you. What did you say?
I say ask on the Slack channel. I will attend to it once I see it. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, Udonchukwu. Somebody else hand was up. If is that as your hand come down. So if that's all, enjoy the night and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Thank you very much. I'll stop recording now.